The Roman Empire is widely considered to have collapsed. This is a common historical understanding. However, the term collapse itself requires some clarification. We are primarily referring to the Western Roman Empire, not its Eastern counterpart, which continued as the Byzantine Empire for another 1,000 years. The collapse was also not a singular event, but rather a protracted process, unfolding over centuries. Many factors contributed to this outcome, creating a complex web of interconnected issues rather than a simple, identifiable cause. This process was gradual, almost unremarkable in its day-to-day progression for many citizens. One significant factor was the deterioration of the Roman economy. The empire faced persistent issues with inflation, largely due to the debasement of its currency. Emperors would reduce the precious metal content in coins, which naturally led to more coins being needed to buy the same amount of goods. This created a cycle of rising prices. Simultaneously, maintaining the vast military and administration required immense taxation, which placed an unsustainable burden on the populace. Trade routes were disrupted by instability, and the economy, heavily reliant on slave labor, struggled to innovate or adapt to new challenges. The sheer size of the Roman Empire presented a constant military challenge. Defending its extensive borders, which stretched thousands of miles, demanded an enormous and expensive army. Constant warfare, both defensive and internal, depleted resources and manpower. As recruitment from traditional Roman citizens declined, the empire increasingly relied on non-Roman, often Germanic, mercenaries. While effective, these troops sometimes lacked the deep-seated loyalty to Rome, and their cost was a significant drain. This defensive posture meant fewer resources were available for offensive expansion, which historically had fueled the Roman economy through conquest and tribute. The internal political landscape was frequently characterized by instability. The period known as the 3rd century crisis, for example, saw more than 20 emperors claim the throne in just 50 years. Many of these rulers met violent ends, often through assassination or civil war. This rapid turnover prevented consistent leadership and long-term planning. Constant power struggles undermined the authority of the imperial office and eroded public trust in the government. Resources that could have been used to address external threats or economic issues were instead diverted to internal conflicts, further weakening the state's foundations. Concurrently with internal issues, the empire faced increasing external pressure from various migrating barbarian groups. Tribes such as the Goths, Vandals, and Huns moved into Roman territory, often driven by their own internal conflicts or by environmental factors. These incursions led to devastating raids, the sack of cities including Rome itself, and the permanent loss of control over key provinces. The Roman military, already stretched, struggled to contain these threats effectively. The movement of these groups was not always aggressive, sometimes involving requests for settlement, but their presence invariably destabilized the existing Roman order. The sheer scale of the empire led to administrative challenges, culminating in its formal division. Emperor Diocletian first split the empire into eastern and western halves for easier governance. This division was later made permanent by Theodosius I. While intended to improve efficiency, it effectively created two distinct entities. The Western Empire, facing greater external threats and with fewer resources, gradually became secondary to the wealthier and more populous Eastern Empire, based in Constantinople. This split meant that the western half often received less support, and its fate became increasingly isolated from its eastern counterpart. Epidemic diseases played a significant, if often overlooked, role in the empire's decline. Major plagues, such as the Antonine Plague in the 2nd century and the Plague of Cyprian in the 3rd century, decimated the population. These outbreaks caused widespread death, leading to severe labor shortages in agriculture and industry. The reduced population also meant fewer taxpayers and fewer potential recruits for the army. Such demographic crises severely weakened the empire's capacity to produce food, maintain its infrastructure, and defend its borders, contributing to a general atmosphere of decline and despair. As the empire grew, so did its administrative apparatus. This led to an increasingly complex and often inefficient bureaucracy. The distance between the central government and its distant provinces became a breeding ground for corruption. Officials often prioritized personal gain over public service, diverting funds and resources. This systemic corruption further eroded the tax base and hindered effective governance. The elaborate administrative structure, intended to manage a vast empire, instead became a cumbersome burden, contributing to a sense of detachment between the imperial government and the daily lives of its citizens. Over time, the traditional Roman civic identity weakened, particularly in the Western Empire. Citizens in distant provinces often felt less connected to the distant imperial government in Rome or Ravenna. Their loyalties gradually shifted towards local powerful figures, such as landlords or even the barbarian warlords who offered more immediate protection. The idea of being a Roman citizen lost some of its practical meaning. This decline in shared purpose and allegiance made it harder for the empire to rally its people for collective defense or to maintain the civic virtues that had once been a cornerstone of its strength. In summary, the collapse of the Western Roman Empire cannot be attributed to a single, definitive cause. It was a multifaceted process, a complex interplay of all the factors we have discussed. Economic strain, military overstretch, political turmoil, external invasions, demographic crises, administrative inefficiency, and a gradual erosion of civic identity all combined to weaken the empire from within and without. This was a long, drawn-out decline, not an abrupt fall. The legacy of Rome, however, continued to influence the societies that emerged from its ashes, demonstrating that even a collapse can be a transformative rather than an annihilating event.